warm good afternoon. Welcome to NTV News. I'm Shail Suman Silwal. Starting with the top stories. Preparations for the Nepal Investment Summit in final stage. Over 400 investors to participate in the two-day event. Trade deficit sees a surge in the first 7 months of the current fiscal year, increases by 27.1% as per report of Nepal Rashtra Bank. Main suspect of the New Zealand mosque shootings appears in court on murder charges. Prime Minister Ardern vows to change country's gun laws. And Nepal and Bangladesh facing each other in final match of Group A under 5th South 5th World Championship. Today's match to decide the group winner. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. With the aim of attracting international investors in Nepal and promoting the country as a lucrative destination, the government is hosting the Nepal Investment Summit from March 29 to 30. Preparations for the conference jointly hosted by the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Supplies, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Nepal Investment Board are in final stage. More than 400 potential investors and institutions have confirmed their participation in the conference that has agriculture, energy, road, railways and airways industries and IT as the priority areas. CEO of Nepal Investment Board Mahaprasad Adhikari said the meeting of the board chaired by Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli yesterday discussed in length on the preparations for the mega event. The conference will see the participation of multinational donor agencies, diplomatic missions, development partners, NRN, private sector and experts in IT along with high-ranking government officials. Adhikari also informed that agreement on more than 24 major projects will be signed during the two-day conference in Kathmandu. The Investment Board has prepared proposals on more than 60 different projects in various sectors to float in front of the potential investors. The first international conference of such scale 2 years ago had drawn investment pledge of over 14 billion rupees in Nepal. Now moving towards next update, the government has decided to restructure the number of employees in the federal, provincial and local levels. This comes as a large number of positions remain vacant in provincial and local level. The government is preparing to restructure number of employees in all three levels. The government initiated the adjustment process by approving the 47,920 employees in federal, 22,755 in provincial and 67,050 employees in local levels. Secretary at Ministry of Federal Affairs and General Administration Dinesh Kumar Thapalia said after the completion of the employees adjustment process at all three levels, the restructuring would begin. Thapalia also said the current structure is only provisional, adding that all three levels later will restructure the employees as per the need. The government is preparing to cut down the number of employees at the federal level and increase at the provincial and local level. Time for a short break. To stay with us. Welcome back. Continuing with the updates from the national front. Nepal's trade deficit has ballooned by 27.1% as rising imports of fuel and machinery goods and slower growth in exports has continued to dent the country's economy. As per the report released by Nepal Rashtra Bank, the deficit increased more than 780 billion rupees in the first 7 months of the current fiscal year. As usual, trade deficit with India continued to widen in the first 7 months as well, with the imports up by 24.8%. Nepal also saw imports from China increasing by 36.6%, while imports from third countries rose by 23%. The biggest contributor to the trade imbalance is fuel, followed by machinery and equipments, vehicles and spare parts, and electronic appliances. Two reports prepared after on-site visit and study have been presented in the meeting of the House of Representatives Development and Technology Committee. These reports are related to the Kathmandu-Tarai Madhesh fast-track project and the postal road project in Province Number 2. As per the report, the committee has expressed satisfaction with the works carried out by the Nepali Army in the last 18 months in connection to the construction of the Kathmandu-Tarai Madhesh fast-track project, which is seen as the backbone for the country's economic prosperity. It is stated that the works on the construction of bridges and tunnelways required as part of the fast track have not been started at all, and the Nepali Army needed to expedite the construction works as the works in the coming days look difficult due to the difficult geography. The report states that 70% works of cutting and filling have been completed on 54-kilometer stretch of the total 76.2 kilometers fast track. The report also suggested carrying out effective implementation of the Environmental Impact Assessment Report, starting works on the proposed tunnel and bridges, handing over the trees cut down by the project to the community forest users groups and the district forestry office, preparing action plan for completing the project on the set time frame and making the contract awarding process transparent. Likewise, the report on the status of the postal road states that the construction of this road project was very slow and that works on construction of bridges on the road has not been started, yet despite appointing the contractors for the same. It is also stated in the report that the branch roads of the postal highway were being constructed on the basis of political access and influence rather than the road. Now moving towards international front, the main suspect in the mosque shootings that killed 49 people in New Zealand on Friday has appeared in court on a single murder charge. Australian Brenton Tarrant, aged 28, appeared in the dock in a white prison shirt and handcuffs. Further charges are expected to be made against him. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said Tarrant had 5 guns and a firearms license, adding the gun laws will now change. 2 others are in custody. None of those detained had a criminal record. Tarrant was remanded in custody without plea and is due appear in court again on 5th of April. Time for a short break, but let's take a look at what's coming up next. Donald Trump issues his first veto. Welcome back. Continuing with the updates from the international front. Starting with the United States, US President Donald Trump has issued the first veto of his presidency, overruling Congress to protect his emergency declaration for border wall funding. Flanked by law enforcement officials as well as the parents of children killed by people in the country illegally, Trump said the immigration system is stretched beyond the breaking point and calls the congressional action dangerous and reckless. A dozen Republicans joined the Senate Democrats on Thursday to back the joint resolution disapproving of Trump's emergency declaration. The House had passed the same resolution last month largely along party lines. It is unlikely that Congress will have the 2/3 majority required to override Trump's veto. Now moving towards Russia, it is 5 years since Russia annexed Crimea, but analysts say the initial euphoria has worn off for many Russians as economic uncertainty and international isolation becomes a reality. On 16 March 2014, during a hastily called referendum, residents of Crimea overwhelmingly voted to leave Ukraine. Ukraine and Western nations rejected the vote, held 2 weeks after Russian troops had seized control of Crimea. 2 days later, on 18th of March, Russian President Vladimir Putin, along with the pro-Russia leaders of Crimea, signed a treaty which rubber-stamped the annexation of the strategically positioned peninsula. Despite widespread international condemnation and a raft of sanctions imposed on Russia, Russians overwhelmingly supported Putin's actions in Crimea. According to their calculations, 25,000 Crimean Tatars have left the peninsula since the annexation. Those who remain and who are against the current leadership face difficulties. In Crimea, celebrations are already underway ahead of a weekend of event to mark the referendum and subsequent annexation. More celebrations are planned for the weekend, and according to Russian media reports, Putin plans to open 2 new power stations in Crimea on Monday. Time for a short break, but still to come we have. Showing off the Polar Cups. Updates from football. Now taking you to Germany, the Berlin Tire Park Zoo showed off its new polar bear cub to the world after she received her final jabs. The bear, who hasn't been named, was born on December 1st, 2018, and the zoo says she is developing well. She was allowed to venture out of her indoor cage for the first time on Friday and enjoyed romping around with her mother Tonja and swimming in the enclosure's chilly pond. The zoo says that cub will be now allowed out daily for all to see. The 3-month-old cub's playfulness could make her German's capital's next animal celebrity. The Tire Park has the same management as Berlin's other zoo, which was home to celebrity polar bear Nut, whose fame landed him a Vanity Fair cover. He died prematurely from illness in 2011 at age 4. With that, time for Sports Update. Starting from the home front, Nepal is playing against Bangladesh today in its match of 5th SAF Women's Championship. The winner between Nepal and Bangladesh will decide the group winner of Group A. The match is being held at Shahid Stadium in Biratnagar at 3 p.m. Under the Group B, Sri Lanka and India have qualified for the semi-finals with a game to spare, while Bhutan and the Maldives have knocked out of the championship. Now updating you on tennis, Rafael Nadal set up a mouth-watering ATP Indian Wells Masters semi-final clash with long-time rival Roger Federer following a hard-fought victory over Karen Khachanov on Friday. Second set, Nadal had to draw on his reserves to save a set point in the second set before the Spaniard overcame his quarter-final opponent Khachanov via 2 tie breaks, 7-6, 7-6-2. Nadal now leads his head-to-head with Khachanov 6-0, but this meeting, like the previous one at last year's US Open, tested the 17-time Grand Slam champion's resolve, and he required treatment to his right knee during his 2-hour 16-minute victory. Although they have not played each other for over a year, Nadal has won 23 of his 38 previous matches against Federer, but he has lost their last 5 meetings and 2 of their 3 contestants at Indian Wells. Taking you to Japan, Tokyo's Olympics may be known as the Robot Games. Organizers on Friday showed off robots that will be used at the new national stadium to provide assistance for fans using wheelchairs. Tokyo Olympic official Masaki Komiya pointed out that Japan is known for its robot technology and the 2020 Summer Games are a good place to show off. The robots are made by major Olympic sponsor Toyota Motor Corporation. Toyota officials said 16 of the so-called human support robots will be used at the national stadium, with 5 other delivery support robots also being available. Not to be outdone, Panasonic Corporation, also a major Olympic sponsor, showed off its Power Assist suit. When worn, the suit offers support to the back and hip area and allows for heavy objects to be lifted with less effort. Panasonic said 20 of the suits will be used at the Olympics and could help guests with their luggage and with other lifting chores. Minoru Yamauchi of Toyota, the general manager for 2020 robot development, said the automaker is branching out and becoming a mobility company. With that sports update, we come towards the end of this English News Bulletin. But before we say a goodbye, let's take a look at the top stories that have made it to the headlines. Preparations for the Nepal Investment Summit in final stage. Over 400 investors to participate in the 2-day event. Trade deficit sees a surge in the first 7 months of the current fiscal year, increases by 27.1% as per report of Nepal Rashtra Bank. Main suspect of the New Zealand mosque shootings appears in court on murder charges. Prime Minister Ardern vows to change country's gun laws. And Nepal and Bangladesh facing each other in final match of Group A under 5th SAF 5th World Championship. Today's match to decide the group winner. That's all for now. Thank you for staying with us. Goodbye and namaste.